Here's a question that might keep you up at night. What happens when a small Yorkshire car manufacturer wins at Le Mans 3 years running and still goes bankrupt? The answer lies in one of motorsport's greatest ironies, centered on a compact British roadster most people have never heard of. The year was 1950. Britain was still rationing petrol and steel 5 years after the war. In Bradford, a city more famous for wool than wheels, the Jowett brothers' company produced something extraordinary, a car designed by the Austrian engineer who'd created Auto Union's Grand Prix monsters. Clothed in hand-formed aluminum, powered by a quirky flat-four engine dating back to 1906. When Tommy Wisdom and Tommy Wise piloted chassis E0/SA/4R to a class victory at Le Mans on June 25, 1950, averaging 75.8 miles per hour for 24 hours straight, they proved Bradford could build world beaters. But that racing success actually sealed the Jupiter's fate. The company would be dead within 4 years. The factory floor, where craftsmen hand-formed each aluminum panel, would be making tractors by 1955, and the man who designed the chassis would watch his creation fade into obscurity. This is the story of the Jowett Jupiter, a car too successful for its own good, too expensive for anyone's wallet. A car that won on Sunday but couldn't sell on Monday, proving Britain could still build world-class sports machinery right up until the moment the lights went out forever. Section 1. The Bradford Miracle Engineering. Against all odds, by late 1949, Jowett Cars Limited desperately needed steel allocations that post-war Britain only granted to successful exporters. The Bradford van kept them alive over 38,000 units between 1946 and 1954, but the Javelin sedan needed help. Enter Tommy Wisdom, Daily Herald motoring correspondent, and Lawrence Pomeroy from the Motor magazine. They approached ERA with an audacious proposal: build a sports car using Javelin components, prove it could win races, watch American dollars roll in. ERAs. Leslie Johnson persuaded Dr. Robert Eberhard von Eberhorst to design the chassis. This wasn't just any engineer. Eberhorst had drawn the Auto Union Type D Grand Prix car. The man knew speed. Eberhorst designed on a factory floor with chalk and mice for company. After Grand Prix cars and Cisitalia projects, it seemed crazy, but it worked. The result was a chrome molybdenum steel tubular frame, the same material used in Spitfires, large diameter tubes, cross-braced for rigidity. Rack and pinion steering, virtually unheard of in 1949. Torsion bar suspension front and rear with wishbones up front, just 1,792 pounds. But Jowett made a critical error. Eberhorst designed the chassis for a closed coupe. Reg Corner was told to clothe it as an open roadster in 4 months for the April 1950 New York Motor Show. Corner delivered stunning aluminum bodywork, but that rush job had consequences. The chassis flexed without a roof. Eberhorst's specified anti-roll bars had to be abandoned. The rear-hinged bonnet opened complete with front wings spectacular for access, hopeless for rigidity. The engine sat far forward, and the radiator wasn't up front. Jowett mounted it behind the engine, over the gearbox, relying on thermosiphoning, the same cooling principle used in Model T Fords. The Flat 4 descended from the company's original flat twin from 1906, 1,486 cubic centimeters, overhead valves, aluminum block, bore and stroke of 72.5 by 90 millimeters. Compression ratio of 8:1, dangerously high, for 72-octane British fuel. Twin Zenith carburetors produced 60 brake horsepower at 4,500 revolutions per minute and 84 pound-feet of torque at 3,000 RPM. In a car under a ton, sufficient for 85 miles per hour and 0 to 50 in 11.7 seconds. The motor recorded 86.1 miles per hour with 0 to 60 in 18 seconds. The autocar got 90 miles per hour but needed 20.4 seconds to 60. Fuel consumption around 25 miles per imperial gallon. Original price, £1,086, including purchase tax in Britain. In America, $2,548. A Jaguar XK 120 cost £1,263, 160 brake horsepower, 120 miles per hour capability, for just £177 more. That pricing would prove fatal. Section 2. Le Mans, 1950. Victory at the Cathedral of Speed. Le Mans, in June 1950, saw 51 entries. Among Ferraris, Talbots, Aston Martins, and Jaguars sat a single, Jowett Jupiter. Car number 36. Chassis E0/SA/4R. Registration GKW111. The two Tommies Wisdom and Wise. This was the Jupiter's third completed example. First went to New York, second was road testing, this third was race prepared by Jowett's experimental department with one goal: prove the Yorkshire Roadster could run with the big boys. The odds were long. The Jupiter was entered in the 1101 to 1500 cubic centimetre class, facing MG, Simca Gordini and Fiat. 4 other cars, all with racing pedigrees. The Jowett was essentially a road car with its windscreen removed and not much else changed. Tommy Wisdom, born Brighton 1906, had competed since 1931. His wife Elsie, known as Bill, was also a racing driver. Their daughter Anne would become one of Britain's top rally co-drivers. Racing was in the family's blood. Tommy Wise brought mechanical sympathy and the ability to nurse fragile engines through hour after hour of punishment. They'd need every bit of that talent. The race started 4 p.m. Saturday, June 24th. Traditional Le Mans start drivers sprinting across the track to their cars, engines fired, away into the French countryside. The Jupiter settled into rhythm, not fast, but steady, lap after lap, hour after hour. Through the night they ran. Bigger engined cars thundered past on Mulsanne, but the little Jowett held corners. Eberhorst's chassis proved its worth: stable, predictable, forgiving. The torsion bars soaked bumps. Rack and pinion steering gave confidence. By Sunday dawn, attrition was horrific. Cars that should have finished sat broken in pits with failed engines, collapsed transmissions, shattered suspensions. The Jupiter kept circulating. The thermosiphon cooling somehow worked. The fragile flat 4 refused to break. When the checkered flag fell Sunday 4 p.m., the Jowett had completed 217 laps, 2,928.57 kilometers. Average speed, 122.02 kilometers per hour, 75.8 miles per hour for 24 hours straight. 16th, overall, first in class. Not just first, a record-breaking win that no other under 1,500 cubic centimetre car had achieved. The French crowd, who appreciated engineering brilliance regardless of nationality, gave standing ovation to the sagacious two Wisdom and Wise's nickname. British press went wild. Here was proof British engineering could still compete on the world stage. Headlines screamed about the Yorkshire miracle, the Bradford bullet. Jowett's advertising coined the slogan, the car that leaped to fame. Production ramped up. Orders flooded in from America, where dealers saw gold in those Le Mans results. Export allocations improved. Steel became available. The future looked bright. But engineers at Idle were sweating. They knew that Le Mans win happened despite the Jupiter's flaws, not because of strengths. Marginal crankshaft, inadequate cooling, problematic gearbox. Jowett designed their own replacement to save money, but 78 of the first 1,000 cars suffered transmission failures. Racing success was about to collide with manufacturing reality. Section 3. 3 years of glory and production numbers. Wisdom and Wise returned to Le Mans in 1951 with the R1, a lightened Jupiter with skimpier bodywork styled after the Allard J2. 3 R1s were built, so light the passenger seat wasn't load-bearing, because the regulations didn't specify it needed to be. Both the R1 and a standard Jupiter retired that year, but Marcel Becquois and Gordon Wilkins brought another Jupiter home first in the 1500 cubic centimeter class, 2 consecutive Le Mans class victories. The legend was growing. 1952 brought the third and final Le Mans class win, an R1 driven again by Becquois, and Wilkins finished 13th overall, first in class. 3 years, 3 class victories at the world's most prestigious endurance race. No other British manufacturer of Jowett's size matched that record. Beyond Le Mans, the victories mounted. 1951 Monte Carlo International Rally. Jupiters took a class 1-2, with Ellison and Robinson's 6th overall in a standard Mark I. The 1951 Lisbon International Rally, an outright victory for Joaquim Felipe Nogueira, the only time a Jupiter won anything outright against larger, more powerful cars. In America, George Weaver drove an R1 to victory at Watkins Glen in the 1951 1500 cubic centimeter sports car race. Hunter Hackney won the Lake Tahoe Rally outright in August 1952. The Jupiter was proving itself on 2 continents. At Dundrod Circuit in Northern Ireland, Jupiters took a class 1-2 in a grueling 4-hour race on public roads in September 1951. Tommy Wise and Jean Armengol dominated alpine climbing events. The car's light weight and excellent chassis made it a natural for hill climbs and mountain passes. Production reflected this success. 733 Mark I SA models between late 1950 and October 1952. Original cars with no external boot access, walnut dashboard, 60 brake horsepower. Late 1952 brought the Mark IA. 94 SC models with opening boot lid, larger boot capacity, 63 brake horsepower, metal dashboard with centered instruments. The hood design was revised to extend further back, improving the car's profile. 75 additional rolling chassis went to coach builders. Stabilimenti Farina built 4 fixed-head coupes. Gia Suisse, Beutler, Abbott of Farnham, Radford, Richard Mead of Dorridge all created their own interpretations. Some were stunning, some were questionable, all were expensive. Total production: 899 Jupiters of all types. By November 1954, 281 exported to America. Around half survive today, remarkable for a small production British sports car. Section 4. The Paradox. Why racing couldn't save Jowett. Every Le Mans victory, every rally win, every magazine praise should have translated into sales and profitability. Instead, each trophy just dug Jowett deeper into trouble. The fundamental problem was price. That £1,086 tag put the Jupiter against the Jaguar XK, 120 faster, more refined, more powerful, only marginally more expensive. American buyers looked at $2,548 and bought MGTDs, or Triumph TR2s instead. But pricing was just the symptom. The disease went deeper into manufacturing and quality control. Jowett had spent decades building commercial vehicles and utilitarian cars. They'd never attempted anything as sophisticated as the Jupiter. Every car was hand-built by craftsmen forming aluminum panels over wooden formers. Edmund Nankervell, the Jupiter historian, interviewed former Jowett apprentices. They recalled making grills, windscreens, seat frames from raw sheet metal and brass, guillotined to size, nibbled to shape, formed by hand. Extraordinary skill required. Glacial production rates resulted. The factory could never build enough cars, even when demand existed. Technical problems plagued early cars. Crankshaft failures from the Javelin infected the Jupiter. The hotter-running engine was even more fragile. Head gasket failures, valve train problems, overheating from absurd radiator placement. Jowett eventually fixed these issues, but reputation damage was done. The gearbox situation was worse. After 78 failures in the first 1,000 cars with Jowett's cost-saving in-house transmission, warranty costs ate already thin margins. But the fatal blow came from an unexpected direction: bodies. Javelin bodies and Bradford van bodies came from Briggs car bodies, complete and painted. In September 1953, British Motor Corporation bought Fisher and Ludlow, which owned Briggs. BMC honoured existing contracts, but slowly. Soon Jowett had bodies stacked around Bradford because they couldn't sell Javelins fast enough. Body supply was temporarily halted in 1952. It never properly restarted. Without Javelin production supporting overhead, the Jupiter alone couldn't keep the factory running. Hand-building expensive sports cars in small numbers while your volume car sat unsold because you couldn't get bodies, brutal economics. By early 1953, the situation was terminal. Jowett suspended Javelin production. The Bradford van went with it. Only Jupiters remained, still in demand, but devotion doesn't pay bills when hemorrhaging money on every car sold. The 35th annual general meeting in August 1954 was grim. The chairman expressed profound regret. Approximately 65,000 vehicles built since 1946. Not enough. July 1954 brought the announcement. Jowett Cars Limited would sell the main idle factory to International Harvester. The Times noted Jowett had run into difficulties in 1953 following the Fisher and Ludlow acquisition, and it hadn't been possible to keep the factory operating economically. The company reported a small profit for the financial year. It wasn't bankruptcy that killed Jowett, it was impossibility of moving forward. No bodies for Javelin, no volume production to spread costs. No way to make Jupiter profitable at realistic prices. International Harvester moved in to make tractors. Jowett Engineering Limited set up shop in a former woolen mill at Howden Clough, making aircraft parts and maintaining spares service. Blackburn took over in 1956. Spares continued until 1963, when the last remnant finally closed. Section 5. The R4, the Jupiter that could have been. In October 1953, Jowett unveiled one last desperate attempt, the Jupiter R4. 3 prototypes built, representing everything the original should have been. Fiberglass bodywork, redesigned, lighter chassis, overdrive, potential for genuine 100-mile-per-hour top speed. One was officially timed just over 100. A car that could finally compete with the TR2 and upcoming MGA on equal terms. Too late. The company was already circling the drain. Tooling up for production required capital Jowett didn't have. The decision to sell to International Harvester was probably already made when the R4 debuted at Earl's Court. 2 of 3 prototypes survive as monuments to what might have been. There was also a supposed Mark II Jupiter. A Jowett enthusiast discovered plans and drawings in 1979. In 2008, restorer Alan Fishburne acquired those drawings and built one using a damaged Mark Ia chassis and engine, completed around 2011. It shows what 1955 might have brought if Jowett had survived a more refined sports car addressing all the original's quirks. But dreams don't pay creditors. The Jowett Jupiter proves that racing success and commercial success are entirely different animals. 3 consecutive Le Mans class victories, multiple international rally wins, praise from every motoring journalist, a devoted following persisting 75 years later, with active clubs maintaining nearly 500 surviving cars. None of it was enough. That Le Mans victory in June 1950 should have been the beginning of a golden age. Instead, it was the high watermark. Every trophy that followed just made the eventual collapse more painful. The company had created something genuinely special, a sports car with world-class chassis, proven racing pedigree, distinctive character. They just couldn't build it profitably, price it competitively, or survive corporate body blows from outside their control. Robert Eberhard von Eberhorst, who sketched that brilliant chassis in chalk on a factory floor, lived to see his creation fade. The craftsman, who hand-formed each aluminum panel, scattered to other jobs. The dealers, desperate for stock, moved on. The racing drivers went on to other victories. Today, finding a Jupiter at a classic car show is a moment of celebration. Enthusiasts gather, sharing stories of cars owned, restorations completed, events attended. The Jupiter Owners Auto Club maintains that precious connection to history. Values have climbed steadily. A pristine example might fetch £28,000 today. Good examples around 16,000. Even rusty wrecks start at 5,000 because every car is precious. Special-bodied examples command premiums that would have shocked original buyers. But no modern appreciation changes the fundamental tragedy. Jowett built a Le Mans winner and went broke doing it. They proved a small Yorkshire manufacturer could beat the world's best on track. They created jobs, trained craftsmen, advanced British engineering. And they failed because racing success doesn't automatically translate to business success. If you've owned a Jupiter, or knew someone who did, share your stories in the comments. Tell us what it was like to drive one of these Le Mans legends. Tell us about the quirks, the character, the sheer joy of piloting something so rare and historically significant. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into automotive history, please subscribe. We bring you stories of cars that mattered, victories that thrilled, and tragedies that teach us what happens when passion meets reality in the unforgiving world of automobile manufacturing. Thank you for watching, and thank you for keeping these stories alive. The Jowett Jupiter deserved better than it got. The least we can do is remember what it achieved before the lights went out at idle forever.